We're gathered here today for Mass on the feast of St. Joachim and St. Anne. And it's kind of a happy, unofficial Grandparents' Day. When I was reflecting on St. Joachim and St. Anne, I was thinking about how all of us, not me, obviously, but all of us as Christians, you in these pews have probably had children and now have grandchildren, or if not, maybe raised a niece or a nephew, or had young people in your life that you've helped to grow up. And how incredibly hard that is to raise an imperfect child. How incredibly hard it is to raise and spoil an imperfect grandchild. But when I think about that difficulty, I also think about how difficult would it be to be Anne and Joachim and raise a perfect child? How difficult would it be to be Anne and Joachim and raise a perfect grandchild? And so what God's saving plan does is it breaks into our cycle of life, into our cycle of sin, and into our cycle of worldly spinning as it keeps going and going. And God's saving plan breaks into that cycle and interrupts it so that he can start anew and start saving. And the thing that started that breaking in was the Immaculate Conception. Now, all good Catholics will fail that in a trivia contest. The Immaculate Conception is not Jesus, it's Mary. Good job, correct. The Immaculate Conception is Mary conceived without sin. She was spared from original sin. And it's a beautiful reflection to think about that Anne got to bear her in her womb. Anne got to have that Immaculate Conception. And then obviously growing up with her, trying to teach her, Mary still would have been a good little Jewish girl. She still would have been obedient and learned her scriptures, learned her psalms, and then in turn taught Jesus as well. But how hard it would be to be the sinful, imperfect Anne and Joachim and raise the perfect, pure Mary and then Jesus. And I think what can strengthen us today is to realize that we are imperfect parents and grandparents, but yet God is breaking into our daily lives in the form of the Eucharist, which we will receive from the altar in just a few moments. And so let us unite our prayers with Anne and Joachim that we are imperfect people being asked to take on the most perfect of people, the most perfect of children, and the most perfect of sacrifices in the form of bread. We may not have it all together, but God still trusts us with this little package, which is the Eucharist, which is Mary. Well, Mary isn't Eucharist. But God trusts us with these perfect things to help us in our imperfect lives. Amen.